most advisors spending so much time and energy explaining the planning process, they're diminishing the outcomes, which is what drives the behavior. So if you want to know why, after you have somebody in front of you and you're having a great conversation and you're connecting and it's all, man, it's going really good in your mind, like, oh yeah, this is going to happen, right? And then they kind of like it comes time to that moment, right, where say we doing something, they kind of back off. Like, well, I don't know, let me think about it. You never made the emotional connection. Hi, this is Coach Joe Lucas, and welcome to the Magellan Network Show. My goal inside of this communication, this show, is to share with you my nearly 30 years of coaching some of the most successful financial advisors in North America. We're going to be talking about strategies, syntaxes. We're going to be bringing guests on from time to time, and I'm going to share with you what's working now. So think of this show as sort of like a little one-on-one kind of mini coaching cast, if you like, where we're going to be going in depth from time to time on strategies to help you grow your business, get more effective, become more efficient, find balance in your time management, grow your business, and quite frankly, whatever else is going on in the world today. So before we get to today's episode, I'd love for you to do a couple things for me. Number one, make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're doing the audio, make sure that you give us a review on whether it's Spotify or Apple. We'd really appreciate that. And quite frankly, that does help. It does matter when you rate things and like things and subscribe to things. It helps us get the word out to more of the industry. And lastly, I have a very special gift for you. Go to MagellanNetwork.net, so one word, MagellanNetwork.net, and I have for you a complimentary membership, 100% gratis, where you can tap into about between 50 and 75 hours of masterclasses, forms, tools, templates, and strategies. So please go ahead and make sure you go ahead and get that claimed. Smash the like button and subscribe. And please go ahead and leave us a review on whatever podcasting platform you're on. And now, let's get to this week's episode. Hi, it's your Coach Joe Lucas, and welcome to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. Hey, in this episode, I know it says selling right in the title, but what we're really going to talk about today is how to be super effective with prospects. Like when you get, I don't care if you get referred to them, COI refers them, a client, you're doing some other marketing, Dave Ramsey, Smart Assets, seminars, White Glove, Snappy Kraken. It really doesn't matter where the prospect comes from. What I want to do is share with you what I've observed for many, many years on what really is super effective and then what is actually ineffective. So again, if you're a Magellan Network member, right, if you're one of our network members, then obviously you have access to some of these master classes, which I'm going to talk about and stuff like that. If you're not a Magellan Network member, it's a great time to check that out, and we'll talk about that at the end of this video. So I truly think, to me, there are two things that will frustrate an advisor. On one side, it's when you have a client who leaves you for no good reason, right? Performance is okay, relationship is okay, they just want to do something different, right? Or they met somebody, or whatever it is, right? And you're like what the heck, right? So I think that is truly frustrating. But I think the most frustrating thing is when an advisor is in front of a prospect, and the advisor knows that they can really help them, and they can't get it across the finish line. Okay? I think that's the most frustrating thing you'll ever do. And again, I don't care how that person got in front of you. It doesn't matter to me, right? So, why is that? Like, what causes us not to be super effective in dealing with people? And again, these will be generalities. I'm not saying everybody does this, but here's what I've observed. I think as a profession/industry, we're over-reliant on information. We like to over-information our prospects, our clients, everything. Right? And I'll explain what that means in a moment. The second thing that we tend to do is that we are also relying on systems, right? And there's nothing wrong with systems, right? We have a system here called Get the Yes, which takes you from prospect all the way through client. And the reason why I decided to record this video or audio, depending on how you're doing this, is I've spoken to two clients very, very recently. And they were frustrated with their conversion process. And they go, Joe, we're following, like two different situations. Hey, we're following the framework. Intro meeting, consultation project, usually a financial planning project, right? And then we get the assets on the end of that, right? So pretty simple, again, I'm not going to detail it out, but pretty simple process system, if you will, framework, right? So what happens? Number one is that we advisors always want to feel intelligent, smart to our prospects. We want to kind of maybe show off a little bit. So we end up doing that. Number two, like I said, we rely on too much information. Number three, we end up talking too much. It becomes a bit of a pitch, and it becomes a problem. Okay, so I don't care what strategy you follow, whether it's our Get the Yes system or you follow somewhere else, or you've just kind of made up your own out of thin air, whatever it is, right? But here's what I'm going to tell you right now. If you're not bringing your emotional A game to these conversations and your three energies, your physical energy, your emotional energy, and basically your spirit energy and your intellectual energy, if you're just showing up to think the system's going to work for you because, well, yeah, it's a system, right? It'd be like a Broadway actor or actress saying, I know my lines, so the audience should love me. I'm doing this for the 1,000th time, right? And you got to remember, just because you know your process cold, it's the first time that prospect's in front of you. So I think a lot of times advisors end up kind of mailing it in because they are not focused on the right things, or they're trying to get their pitch across or show how bright they are, how successful they are. And you got to dig in with the person or a couple in front of you. And that takes energy to have real emotional conversations, right? To really connect at the deepest level, to really get what their true wants are, not just their needs. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then understand what you're doing, right, from that perspective. And this is what I caught in both situations. They were selling a financial planning process. Nobody cares about it. Nobody buys financial. I mean, you think about it. Of the people that you've been with, prospects, what percentage of them have gone through a financial planning process? A true one. What percent? Probably under 10%, right? So in other words, we're going to ask somebody to say yes to something because we're going to explain the process. We're going to show them the outcome, right? We're going to show them the product, right? Here's a sample of this, sample that, right? Oh, isn't this really cool? Look at all the bar graphs and charts and graphs and also the jazz. Look, it's in color too. Isn't that cool? Nobody cares. Here's what they care about. Getting their outcomes. And their outcomes fall into a few buckets in no particular order. Bucket number one, getting their outcome in terms of what they need, whether what they need in retirement, what they need in terms of investments, what they need in terms of they're a business owner, right? From that perspective, needs matter. But that is not the driver of any conversation, any process. And what do we do? Especially somebody if you're more in the insurance side of the world, right? What do we call that thing? A needs analysis, right? Let's find out what the needs are, right? Or a fact finder, right? Again, important, but we're going to get caught up in like the stuff and not the emotion. So the needs bucket is a deliverable, right? So what are their needs outcomes? The second thing we need to understand is what are their wants outcomes, which are totally different than their needs, and I'll explain that in a second, okay? And just so you know, the wants are 10 times more influential than the needs, at least, okay? And then the last one is what we call needs, wants, and we call it wounds. That's what I was taught to talk about it. Things they want to avoid, right? So pain, right? Which we'll talk about examples in a second. So there's basically 3 buckets of outcomes. That's what you're quote unquote selling to, not the plan. The plan is just the tool to get those 3. And I find advisors fall in love with the planning process. Oh, look, we're going to do this. We're going to meet a couple times. Like all this stuff, like, hey, here's the recipe. Here's how we're going to bake the cake. You know what the person cares about? Is it going to taste good? That's all they really care about, right? And we'll spend 80% of our time explaining the process and the tools, right? And we spend very little time talking about outcomes. And that we got to totally invert that. It's all about the outcomes. Because if I said to you, and let's kind of take the buckets, right? Examples. And I'm going to keep it simple, retirement situation, right? I'm going to keep it simple. So needs. Hey, I need to know when I can retire, and I need to know, i.e. make sure I'm not going to run out of money. Those are their needs, right? I'll not outlive my money, and when can I go? Okay, that's a need. Wants, different conversation. Well, what I really want in my retirement, again, my perfect retirement would be I'd have a place at the beach, I'd be able to travel, I'd be able to help the grandkids with their college. Those are my wants. Hey, what are your wounds? Or hey, what are some issues you definitely want to avoid? Volatility, not running out of money, not being a burden to my kids, not having to sell my house, right? Like, okay. So those are the three buckets. Now, what we'll tend to talk about, because it's simple, right, is we'll go to the technical stuff. Oh, part of the planning process, we'll find out about, where you are with your 401k, blah, 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 can you retire? And then we'll also do a retirement income analysis, how many years, Social Security analysis, stuff like that. Great. And then we may talk a little bit about helping the kids, stuff like that, but you missed the wants. Here's the question. Hi, Coach Joe Lukacs here, and I'm just breaking here for a moment just to do a couple quick reminders. Number one, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcast. In addition, please leave a comment or a review. Those things really, really matter. And share this episode with 3 of your colleagues inside the financial services space. And lastly, make sure that you go ahead and claim your free membership inside of Magellan Network. Now back to this week's episode. Hey, tell me why it's really, really important for you to have that beach house. I'm curious, tell me why you really want to help the grandkids, right? And those are their emotional drivers, right? And then let's say, look, I don't want volunteers. So if we could create a portfolio for you that would, again, we can never guarantee zero it out, but would be highly reduced in terms of volatility. That's something really, really important to you, right? Yeah, great, okay. That's what they care about. And so whether you do a 80-page Money Guy Pro, eMoney, Right Capital, whatever, they're all good, by the way, or I don't care if you get on a chalkboard and draw it up. What that person cares about is their outcomes. How you arrive at that is just how you arrive at that. And again, most advisors are spending so much time and energy explaining the planning process, they're diminishing the outcomes, which is what drives the behavior. So if you want to know why, after you have somebody in front of you and you're having a great conversation and you're connecting and it's almost going really good in your mind, like, oh yeah, this is going to happen, right? And then they kind of like it comes time to that moment, right, where say we doing something, they kind of back off. Like, well, I don't know, let me think about it. You never made the emotional connection, right? So here's how we do it. And I'm hacking my Get the Yes program a little bit, but this all week has been on my head. So I want to get this, before I go away on my sabbatical, I want to make sure we cover it. So what you need to do, if you know, game plans, right, financial plan, then you got to take the recommendation of that plan and tie it. And here's what I mean. Hey, Bob, one of the things I'm going to recommend is that we execute a full-fledged financial planning process because, number one, it's going to let us know about your viability and when you're viable to actually retire. And you just said that's something you really, really needed to know, right? Yeah, great. Also, part of doing this financial plan is we're going to be able to do an income retirement analysis. And we're going to be able to kind of get a feel, right, for what your money is going to look like in your retirement. And we're going to project out to probably 100, right? Because that's just what we want to do. Next, the other really important part about this planning process, I want to find a way to see if we can orchestrate you getting that beach house. Because I knew you said that's something you really, really wanted. That's like your ideal concept. And then also we're going to take a look at funding some of your grandkids' college. I know you said that was really, really close to your heart. And so that plan is going to give us that opportunity to really kind of look at how we can do some set-asides of capital to really make that happen for you. And then the last really cool thing about the plan is when we get into the portfolio part, we're going to construct a portfolio that's going to be as less risky and volatile as possible. And that'll be part of our planning process too, because you really want to know that, right? Okay. So notice what I did. I never sold the planning process. I sold the outcomes and tied it back to the plan like, hey, the plan is the vehicle to get this to happen, right? And if I would have said, hey, we're going to take you through a strategy session in our office, and we're going to get on whiteboards, and we're going to draw some stuff out, and you can take pictures of it with your phone and stuff like that. And hey, our investment into doing the plan is $5,000. The investment to do a strategy set, it wouldn't matter what the investment is or what the tool is. What the person cares about is the outcome, right? If you showed a prospect a e-money sample, a Right Capital sample, a Money Guy Pro sample, they wouldn't know how to judge that. That's like They can tell you what kind of car they want to buy. They can tell you about other stuff, right? As a consumer, we just don't buy financial plans every day. So there's limited value in what I call point tell. Right? Here it is. Look at the plan. Is it really cool? Let me tell you all about it. Nobody cares. Okay. So I think that's really important. So number one, do not quote unquote sell your planning process. Focus on outcomes and tie it back into whatever your process is, right? That way they're emotionally connected to wanting to do what you ask them to do and invest in it, which is really the key element here, right? And by the way, never use the word, hey, our financial planning fee, right? Or the cost, that's even worse, Who loves fees? Raise your hand if you love fees. Unless you're an airline, right? Nobody loves fees. Nobody loves cost. When I say investment, hey, the investment in our planning process is, or your investment to get this plan done is. The term investment connotates what? A return of capital, right? Return on that investment. So in other words, it's not a cost. It's an investment to get an outcome. Therefore, it's valuable, right? So even the language, what you call it, how you frame it, is critical in this situation. Critical. Okay? And the last thing I want to say, which is again is just top of mind, I hear this all the time, Joe, just all I need is, man, just get me in front of the prospect. I'm good. Like, I just need more leads. Like, dude, you got plenty of leads. You just think, you need more conversions. You need more yeses. And the marketplace has shifted. So this is the other thing I think is really important, especially if some of you guys and gals have been around for a while. Hey, this is not like it was in the 90s and 2000s, and even 2010s. Like, we have somebody coming in who's over informational, right? Think about it. The average human being, especially now with ChatGPT and AI and stuff like that, they don't lack information. In fact, they probably have too much information. They have too much conflicting information. So the last thing you need to do is throw more information at them, just because we like it. Like, you got to help them sort it out. What they're coming to you for is not a process. It is not a plan. It is an outcome. Or a series of outcomes. Don't forget that. And the last thing I want to say, like I said, when you're over reliant, is you can have a great system and still fail. How? Because when it comes to people, and when it comes to, I know I put the word selling in there just a little, just to catch you. But we're really talking, in order to influence and persuade and lead a person, right, which is what you're doing, it's an emotional process, right? It's emotional. So how do we create emotions? We have to have energies. We have to have physical energy. You got to have mental energy. You got to have emotional energy. Like, you got to bring your A game to these meetings. I don't care if it's a Zoom. I don't care if it's an intro. I don't care what it is. When you're trying to help somebody make a decision or push them over, and I'll say the way I'm going to say it, to push them over the fence to get it going when they don't want to. They're unclear. They're hesitant, right? And here's what happens. They like you. They think this is a good idea, but they're not congruent. They're not there yet, right? And so that will look like, oh yeah, this, I think I want to do. Let me think about it for a while. This is really good. Thanks for the information, stuff like that. So in other words, you're like, what did I miss? Like, I did everything. I showed them this, because you never engage them emotionally. So what you got to do when you get with somebody is you just can't mail it in. That is a B player trying to play an A game. You got to bring your A game to these situations, not your B game. Hell no, not your C game. You just can't show up, okay? If you do that, if you're just showing up, I'm going to say it this way, it was framed to me many, many years ago by somebody. If you bring less than your best, and then that prospect you don't convert, that you could have converted if you were at your best, you were selfish. You decided, I would rather be comfortable and lazy than bring my A game. And you robbed that person. You stole from them because now they're not going to engage you. They're going to often find somebody else, maybe. Think about it. That is what happens when you don't bring your best. You diminish yourself and you cheat the other person. If you truly believe that you have the prospect's best interest in heart, you're going to act in the highest fiduciary manner, you can get them their needs, get them their wants, and heal their pain, i.e. wounds, right? Like, hey, we can. This process will do that. Then you owe it to that person to do whatever you can within the bounds of ethics to get them to say yes to what you're doing, which means you got to emotionally hang in there with them. And by the way, this is not about closing, so let me be clear, because I know some of you are going to go, oh man, now we got to go close this thing. And no. If this is done in the framework that I teach, there's no closing. It's a natural process to get to the outcome we want. But every step matters. So just make sure that the next time you're in front of somebody and they need your help, that you do not rob them of that opportunity. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. See you all in a week. Take care. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. Hey, if any of this resonated with you, I invite you to come to MagellanNetwork.net, and we have a powerful group coaching community of like-minded advisors. Come in for a trial. You and I will have a one-on-one conversation. Let's see if I can help elevate your game, both personally and professionally.